Welcome everyone to the Q&A Fireside chat of the Earned Life movie between Marshall Goldsmith and Saahil Mehta, organized together with Right Selection and Gautam Ganglani. Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I don't think I need to present Marshall Goldsmith because you've just been watching 90 minutes of the movie with Marshall Goldsmith, the world's #1 leadership thinker. Thank you very much, Marshall, for joining us today. Also, we have as the host of this Q&A, Saahil Mehta, who together with Gautam Ganglani and Right Selection are the regional directors for the Stakeholder Center for Leadership trainer program in the Gulf and India region. And also, yes, Saahil is pointing indeed at the SEL trainer program. If you'd like to find out more about that, scroll down on the page of the movie screen and you can find out more information about that. Now, the Q&A today will take about slightly over 30 minutes. You can ask your questions in the chat window if you'd like, which will be select a few questions from those towards the end of the Q&A. And wonderful to have you here. And I'm passing over the board to our host today, Saahil Mehta.
Thank you for the warm introduction, Patrick. What an honor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, to have you here with us on this fireside chat. So, The Earned Life, I mean, I love the title. You know, what a great perspective that you need to earn your life every day. It's not about living on the laurels of yesterday, but it's about living, earning your life every single day. Please, can you elaborate on this amazing choice of title for this movie?
You know, I think you pretty much said it. If you look at basic Buddhist philosophy is every time I take a breath, it's a new me. And the idea of the earned life is the idea that's going to be in my next book, which is also called The Earned Life. And that is, life is a series of constant reincarnations. And the earned life is not about getting an achievement or winning a trophy. The earned life is the day-to-day activity. It's very similar to the Gita. The focus is not on the outcome. The focus is on do your best, be present in the moment. And basically that is the earned life. So life is a process of consistent re-earning.
I love that. I love that. And I also love the line from the movie. This is specifically when you were looking at the clock tower, the largest clock, I believe, in Europe. And you mentioned, we don't see what is there, but rather we see what we want to see. And this was specifically where the number 4 was not an IV, but in fact, it was 4 eyes. You know, this is, how do you overcome this process, which most people would probably call assumption?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because I also do another test. I'll do it for everyone listening right now, which I don't think is in the movie. I ask people, and by the way, those of you who are not from the States, do this with Americans, you'll have great fun. So you get some American and you say, all right, I'm going to have a simple US geography quiz, 4 questions. What state in the United States is the furthest north? What state is the furthest south? What is the west and east? Now, the huge majority of Americans will say, some of them miss them all. They think of the 48 states, they missed them all. Most Americans will say north is Alaska, but then they'll say south is Florida, which is wrong. West is Hawaii, which is wrong. And east is Maine, which is wrong. Why? Because when we were little children in America, you have a puzzle map. And their answers are exactly like the little puzzle map given to a 6-year-old. The point is, they don't look at a globe. Well, again, once that is in your mind, that's where those states are. That's where you're going to see them, even though that has nothing to do with the correct answers. So what's interesting is, by the way, the correct answers are north is Alaska, south is Hawaii, west is Alaska, and east is Alaska, which crosses the 180-degree line, making it both west and east. Almost no Americans ever get this right. So all of you, my friends from India, have fun with Americans. This is a great trick. So how do you change perception? The key is follow-up. You don't believe I've changed when I tell you I've changed. You believe I've changed when you see me day after day after day after day working at change. Then you realize this guy's taking it seriously. It's not a joke. It's not an instant religious experience. It's a constant process of re-earning.
Wonderful. I'm sure the audience is going to love that tool. Thank you for sharing that. Now, while working with the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, he shared a perspective that a suggestion by the boss is pretty much like an order.
Right.
Even though the intentions might be good, you're trying to, help your employee, help raise them, but in fact, you're doing something else. And you referred to this in your New York Times bestseller, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, as adding too much value.
Right.
How is this hurting progress in the company?
Well, the higher up you go, the more important this becomes. And what he said is, my suggestions do become orders. They not might become orders, or sort of, they are orders. When the CEO makes a suggestion, is an order. For 9 years, I trained the animals in the United States Navy. What's the first thing I tell you? You're an animal, you make a suggestion, people salute. It's an order. Animals don't make suggestions, animals give orders. Well, here's the key. You've got it when you go up in the organization, you manage knowledge workers. They know more than you. Now, the best case study from the book about this is my friend Alan goes to Ford. He goes to Ford and everyone says green. They say they're all on plan and they're losing $17 billion. Alan then says, well, let's try again. Finally, someone says red. Now, here's the critical point, Saahil, back to what you asked me. At that second, if Alan would have said, have you thought of, what would that person have said? Yes, sir. But Alan didn't know anything about the answer. He's from Boeing. He'd never worked in a car company. What did he say, though? We have brilliant people. We have a great team. Let's find the answer. Not, have you thought of? 98% of the leaders would have said, have you thought of this? The wrong answer. The wrong answer. The right answer is exactly what Alan did. So it was a great case. I love Alan, by the way. I thought he did a great job in the movie.
And, being one of the top leadership coaches in the world, I guess one of the key success points of being a great coach is also curiosity, and that also makes a great leader. So what you pointed out was just being more curious as opposed to, here's my opinion, or this is what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Over the last year and a half, we've seen a lot of stress and anxiety in the world. A lot of people have elevated levels of stress and anxiety, which is resulting in mental and physical challenges, health issues. I remember when we were together, you had this great phrase about acceptance of what is. And I'd love if you could share that with the audience, because, with people in fear, I believe this is such a great tool that they can apply and become more calm.
Well, what happens is we're bombarded with news, we're bombarded with videos, we're bombarded with so much stuff that it can be very distressing and stress producing. A very important lesson from my book Triggers is, before you deal with anything, ask yourself a question. Am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference in this topic? Am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? If the answer is yes, go for it. Go for it. If the answer is no, take a deep breath and let it go. And we get so stressed out about what we cannot change, then we waste energy on what we can change. So that's a key learning point from the Gita. Don't get lost in the outcomes. Breathe, focus on the process. Have a strategy, do my best. Have a strategy, do my best. That's all we can ever do in life. One of the great people in our 100 Coaches program is Harry Kramer, who was a former CEO of Baxter. He was asked, how do you sleep at night? You've had to fire people. You've had to lay people off. How do you sleep at night? He said, very easily. I asked 2 questions. Did I do what I thought was right? And did I do my best? If the answer is yes and yes, I can sleep at night. Why? That's all any of us can do. What's the essence of the Gita? You do what you think is right and you do your best. Make peace.
Wow. I definitely know that using those pearls of wisdom, I'll get a better night's sleep tonight for sure. I want to share a story with everyone who's listening. During our visit together a few weeks ago, there was a very important lesson that I learned. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but while we were together, and this wasn't for 15 or 20 minutes where, anyone could pull off and wear a mask and, not be themselves. But during the 6 hours that we were together, you made me feel like I was the most important person in your life during that period. And as I was reflecting on my flight back, I said to myself, wow, such humility. And more importantly, what an amazing trait for a leader to have. And rather than, I should be looking at my team and saying, how can I serve you? Right? And so, what tools can leaders implement to practice this more and to really switch their mindset from me to serving everyone else?
Well, Peter, I'm very blessed. I mean, as the movie pointed out, I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world twice. I had the privilege of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker, who was the founder of modern management. My intellect compared to his is that of a 10-year-old boy. And Peter Drucker taught me many wise lessons. One lesson is, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're right. And he said, always focus on who's the customer. And the customers don't have to buy, you have to sell, and your mission is to serve the customer. Well, when you were with me, you were the customer. Well, if you realize this person is the customer, you treat them like the customer, you're there to serve them, they're not there to serve you. It's not that complicated. It's a matter of focus. Just focus on who's the customer. Let me give you a great, great story. Over the period of COVID, I spent 350 hours with my friend Mark Thompson talking to 60 of the most brilliant people in the world. We had athletes, Broadway stars, president of the World Bank, head of the Rockefeller Foundation, CEO of Cardinal Health, amazing people. And we would meet every weekend in groups of 6 or 8 or 10. And one of the guys was a Broadway star, Telly. Another one was Margot, who just sold Ancestry.com to Blackstone for $4.7 billion. Margot said, I have to make the same presentation 16 times. It's hard. I said, Telly, you were a star of Aladdin on Broadway 1,000 times. How did you do it? How'd you stay motivated? He told a beautiful story. He said, I was a little boy. The kids were bigger than me. It wasn't easy for me. I went to a Broadway play and it was music and dancing, and it was one of the most wonderful things. He said, every night I think of that little boy. And every night I get out there, that show is for that little boy. And if there's one of those little boys in the audience, it's worth it. Well, that's the way you've got to think about this stuff. Don't think about yourself. Think about that other person.
Know your customer. I love that. And once you know who that is, it becomes so much easier. So, you were talking about showtime right now, and I want to stick to that topic because, I remember also you mentioned that sometimes you hear leaders bickering that, oh no, I've got a headache, I'm not feeling good, I'm tired. And then you gave a great analogy between leaders and people performing at Broadway. And I think this would be a perfect moment to share that story as well.
Well, yeah, I do. One of the things I tell everyone, before I work, I do a chant. What's the chant sound like? There's no business like show business, like no business I know. Well, I always do that little chant before I work. And 2 of the people who hopefully saw the movie, Frances Hesselbein, who, by the way, at that time when the movie was shot, I think was 102 years old. She was 102 when the movie was shot. She's 105 now. Wow. And Alan Mullally, who I spent a lot of time with. Now, I've known Frances and Alan 30 years at least each. They're great friends of mine. How many times in our 30-year friendship have I ever seen them be negative, complain, whine, poor me? And the answer is none. 0. I am up, I am positive, I am a professional. And Frances, to serve is to live. That's her. And that's who she is, and just an inspiration to be around her. I love the story in the movie about her carrying the laundry.
Yeah.
Such a touching story. Again, this is a woman who's the CEO. And in front of everyone, she's carrying the laundry. What a message.
Definitely no ego on that lady at all. Not one drop.
No.
Marshall, while we were together in Nashville, you shared, we were talking about the difference between the leader of the past and the leader of the future. A lot of, and it kind of fits in nicely with your book as well. What got you here won't get you there. But can you please share with us how that has transitioned and how we should be more aware of the leader of the future in order for us to be able to succeed in our environment and elevate all those around us?
Well, A few things. Number one, I did a book on this one, and it was called Global Leadership for the Next Generation. And the leader of the future, we talk about 5 things. One is you have to be a global thinker, not just a domestic thinker. 2, that you need to be cross-culturally sensitive and work with cross-cultural diversity. Then number three is you need to be technologically savvy, just updated with technology to know what you need to do. 4, build alliances and teams. 5, though, is the one that's most important for stakeholder-centered leadership. And everything I teach is, Peter Drucker also said, the leader of the past knows how to tell, the leader of the future knows how to ask. In the past, leaders often knew more than the people that were being led. Well, if I know more than you, and then I tell you what to do and how to do it, it's not so bad. On the other hand, when you know more than me, as the Alan Mulally case study, I cannot tell you what to do and how to do it. I have to ask, I have to listen, I have to learn. Now, you could say that's humility. You could also say that's common sense. It's common sense. If you know more than me, why am I telling you what to do? That is stupid, right? So my friends, Alan and Francis, you could say they're quite humble leaders. On the other hand, you could just say they're smart leaders.
Well, it's as you say, it's as many people say, common sense is not so common. But Marshall, everything that you say, it's so easy to understand, right? I mean, you don't need a PhD to understand what you're sharing with us. Yet it all makes logical sense, but yet it's so difficult to implement. Why is that?
Well, I for years have done follow-up, and I measure, do people do what I teach? And I interviewed people that don't do it. And I ask them that question, why didn't you do it? And it's not because they don't believe it. And I taught a class for Johnson & Johnson, right? And 70% of the people did something, 30% did nothing, not 1 minute. So I interviewed 30%. Why did you not do anything? They loved the class, they loved me, and they loved the concept. Why didn't you do anything? The answer had to do with the dream. Now I'm going to make a prediction. I'd like you to write in the chat box if you've had this dream or not. The dream sounds like this. I'm incredibly busy right now. Given pressures at work and home and new technology that follows me everywhere, I feel about as busy as I ever have. Sometimes I feel overcommitted. I don't tell others this, but every now and again, my life feels a little out of control. Yet, I'm working on some very unique and special projects right now. And I think the worst of this is going to be over in 4 or 5 months. And then I'm going to take 2 or 3 weeks and get organized and spend some time with the family. I'm going to begin my new Healthy Life program. And after that, everything's going to be different and it will not be crazy anymore. In the chat box, just send a note. Have you ever had a dream that feels like that dream? And then how long have you been having this dream? Well, there's not going to be any 2 or 3 weeks. Sanity doesn't prevail. Tomorrow's going to be just as crazy as today. Why don't people do what I teach? Not because they're mean or stupid or evil. They're busy. And it's very hard in today's busy, hectic pace to back away, breathe, and keep focused on what's most important.
Marshall, a lot of people talk about this work-life balance, and it's so easy to say yes to everything. Perhaps you want to be included. You don't want to be the one that says no. You don't want to be the one that's, the outcast. So you keep saying yes, but that means that everything you say yes to, it's filling up your schedule, and you're getting stretched more and more.
That's right.
How about saying no? How about knowing which direction am I going and saying no?
Well, it's just a matter of discipline and being able to know what is most important to me. That is why I try to keep everything positive, simple, focused, and fast, like feed forward. Positive, simple, and focused. Why? If it's time consuming, you won't do it. So all the things I teach, you have to ask yourself, not is it a good or bad thing to do? Because everyone pretty much say it's a good thing to do. The question is, can I do this in a cost-efficient manner? So I try to make this all very, very cost-efficient, so that people can actually do it without sucking up hours and hours and hours of their lives.
Absolutely. So Marshall, although several businesses, they reward performance with financial incentives. However, the morale of the employee doesn't always improve. So how can we bridge this gap of raising the energy levels of the team? Because clearly it's not always just the money.
Well, a couple of comments, a couple of thoughts. One thought is, I went to a program sponsored by the National Academy of Human Resources. in the States. I'm a fellow of this National Academy. Mostly they're heads of HR big companies and a few consultants like me, David Ulrich, a few people. I go to this program and they talk about employee engagement. And then they say, tell us everything you know about employee engagement. They talk about empowerment, training. And then they say employee engagement is all-time low around the world. Well, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is the same sermon I've heard for 30 years. Why is employee engagement all-time low? I realized 100% of the dialogue was, what can the company do to engage you? And 0, would you have any responsibility for your own engagement? 0. This is not exaggeration. 100% company, 0 person. So I fly all the time on American Airlines. I said I have 11 million frequent flyer miles. One flight attendant's positive, motivated, and upbeat. One's negative, angry, and bitter. They're on the same plane. The difference isn't the outside, it's the inside. Well, one thing I've been teaching people is the 6 questions who ask, and did I do my best to every day? So you get everybody to take responsibility for their own lives, as opposed to being a victim and blaming the company for all their problems. And, the results on this have been pretty amazing. Just getting people every day to say, did I do my best to set clear goals? Did I do my best to make progress? Did I do my best to find meaning? Did I do my best to be happy? Did I do my best to be fully engaged? Did I do my best to build relationships every day? And, if anybody would like an article about that, my email address is marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. I'll send you the research on this, but it is pretty amazing.
So that leads nicely into the next question. You're one of the top leadership coaches in the world. You have all these amazing tools that you share with people, exercises, but yet you have someone calling you every single day, asking you 30 plus questions. Please enlighten the audience, the reason behind this.
Well, we talked about this in a movie with my friend Jasmine, and the answer is, she doesn't do it now because she has 2 little babies. Yeah. So when she's got 2 little babies, I now have Mark Thompson call me every day, but I've had someone call me every day for almost 30 years. Why? Well, my name is Marshall Goldsmith. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker coach in the whole world. And I have someone call me every day. Somebody said, why? Don't I know the theory about how to change? I wrote the theory about how to change. I didn't just read the book. I wrote the book. I wrote it. I didn't read it, right? That doesn't mean it's easy for me to do. I am too cowardly and undisciplined to do any of this stuff by myself. I am too coward. I don't say that to be cute or smart. It's true. This stuff is hard to do. It is hard to look in the mirror every day, like the daily question process we talked about in the movie. Anybody that tells me that's easy, you've never done that before. Never done it. It's not easy. Anybody says this stuff is easy, you haven't done it. You do it for a few months and tell me how easy it is. It is psychologically very difficult to look in the mirror and take responsibility. By the way, blaming other people is so much more fun.
And easier. And a lot
easier. Where's the problem? There, right there. How about here? There, you're the problem, not me. It's very hard to do.
Definitely sounds like some people that I know. So now I want to shift the conversation to the Stakeholder-centered leadership program.
Right.
What I love about this program is it's not just focusing on leaders. It's really on all stakeholders in the company who have the potential to even become leaders. And it's all about raising and elevating the skills of everyone around, because if I focus just on me, that's great. But if I focus on everyone around me too, everyone is elevated and the company outperforms. Can you share how you came up with this philosophy?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Years ago, I was working with a company called the Northrop Grumman Company. And Northrop at that time was very, very in bad shape. A new CEO came in, Kent Kressa. This guy, I've had the privilege of working with about 5 CEOs who were the best turnaround people literally in American history. So I'd say of the large corporate turnarounds of the top 10 in my lifetime, I've worked with at least 5 of the top 10 leaders who did it. Amazing people. Kent Kressa is one of those people. This company went from terrible to most admired company in America. What did he do? Every leader got feedback. He went first. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. He went first. And every leader in that company got feedback. Every leader picked areas to improve. Every leader followed up. And Kent challenged me. He said, how am I going to know this works? He's the one that inspired me to start measuring things. And then I started measuring things. I realized if people do this, will people get better? Was what he asked me. Prove to me people got better. We've measured this now with thousands of people. You know what we proved? They get better if they do it. We also proved if they don't do it, they really don't improve too much. Now I've got some good news that we came up with in our research that Kent sort of inspired. You know what the good news is? If they do nothing, they don't get worse. They stay the same. So the people that do this stuff got better. The people that didn't do the stuff stayed the same. And what I learned is the hard part is doing it.
Yeah.
It's not understanding it, it's doing it. Yes.
So, you know, it is amazing how you've also been able to raise lots of money for charity by charging your clients, I believe it's $20, you know, every time they say no, but, or however, you know,
Right.
How much have you raised and what is the effect of using these words around your stakeholders?
I've raised over $1 million for charity, and you know,
Wow.
I find my clients $20 every time they begin a sentence with no but or ever. Now, when I finish this call, I'm working with a nice gentleman. I think he's worth about $4 billion. Now, you might think he would care about $20. That's wrong. He does care. Like one guy, I'm coaching him, and I go 20, 40, 60. He goes, "This is expensive." I said, "You made 35 million bucks last year. This is $20. And by the way, they picked the charity. In his case, this is $20 given to a little homeless child." I said, "Shut up." He said, "You're right. Take 50. It's not the money." Let me give you my best example in India, Mr. GM Rao. If you've ever been to the airport in Delhi, you know, the little sign GMR, GMR, GMR. I'm the coach of Mr. GMR. Now, Mr. GMR is a great guy, humble guy. Bill Gates flies to India with Warren Buffett, and they're going to donate. He decides to donate $340 million US to charity out of his pocket. He's a very nice, generous, humble man. 2 days later, I'm coaching Mr. GMR. We're doing this $20 thing. The money goes to the same charity. 20, 40, 60. He goes, "This is expensive." I said, "Excuse me, you donated $340 million to the charity 2 days ago, and now you're complaining about $20? What is wrong with you?" You know what he said? "Oh, I forgot." Let me explain how this works. It's not the $20. He doesn't care about $20. He doesn't care about $340 million. Winning. See, him donating $340 million to a good charity, in his mind, he's got good values. What's that? That's winning. That is winning. But when I say $20, losing. People don't like to lose.
Yeah. So we're very privileged to partner with you to offer stakeholder-centered leadership online training program in the Gulf and India region. Who should be signing up for this course?
No, either high potential leaders or leaders at all levels. So I think this is something that can help anybody. I got another good comment here. When am I coming to India? Well, I'm going to come as soon as I can. I love working in India. I've been there about 40 times. So I love working in India. It's my favorite place in the world to work. And so I love working there. And so I hope that I can come and visit as soon as I can. So as soon as I can, I am going to be there. Oh, good. Someone called in is on Mr. GM Rao's board. He's just such and not only is he a humble man, he's a generous and kind man. So he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. Yeah. Now, I've got another good question that came in the chat box. And this is, how do you remain positive? How do I stay positive all the time? It's a great, I'm so happy someone asked this question. This is a very subtle but very important point. I'm going to give you a little Buddhist philosophy here, okay? Buddha was brought up rich. He was living in a bubble. He was able to sneak out of the palace 3 times. What did he learn? First time, people get old. Second, you get sick. And third, you die. You get old, you get sick, and you die. All that money, doesn't matter. Still get old, sick, and die. He said, I cannot be happy with more. He goes out into the woods, starves himself, and tries to be happy with less. You know what he learned? Cannot be happy with less. Finally, what did he realize? There's only one thing in life I can ever be happy with, what I have. There's only one time in life I can ever be happy. When's that? Now.
No.
It's only one place, here. Now, a person says, how do I remain positive? I want you to listen to me, the person asks this question, because you're thinking of it in the wrong way. You're trying to say, how do I remain positive forever? You don't have to be happy forever. You don't have to be positive forever. There's only 1 second you need to learn to do this. 1 second. When's that? Now. Just do it now. Let go of that, how can I do it forever stuff. Let go of that, I haven't always done it in the past stuff. That goes no place. Now.
Wow, very powerful. We can't change the past. The future is unknown, but we can certainly decide how we wish to be right now.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. So this stakeholder-centered leadership program, which I'm going to call SCL for now, just to keep it, a nice abbreviation. How can that help entrepreneurs and business leaders build better organizations? And why would you recommend them to learn the art of SCL?
Well, again, part of it is developing leaders throughout the organization, because ultimately leaders need to go through a process, no matter what the size of the organization, in developing new leadership. For example, in a small business, a startup, this is one of the hardest things. It's very hard to develop that next generation of leadership. And that founder, the entrepreneur, needs to be able to back away, to breathe, and develop that next generation of leadership. It's very easy in theory. It's very, very difficult in practice. It can be very, very hard to let go, to develop people. And one of the things we talk about in the stakeholder leadership is how to develop people in the next generation and how to develop yourself. The key point, though, is this. To help others develop, always start with yourself. To help others develop, always start with yourself. Leaders who preach, you know what you do when you preach? You teach people to preach. That's it. When you preach at people, you just teach them to preach. When they watch you as a leader try to get better, they try to get better. When they hear you preach at them, they learn to preach. My friend Frances Hesselbein, wonderful story of her carrying the laundry. She didn't preach. No, they just looked at her. She lived. My friend Alan, when he said, hey, I don't know the answer, let's find some great people that do. He didn't preach. He lived. Yeah. Well, he didn't preach some lesson on humility. He didn't stand up and say, aren't I humble? He lived it. Frances, she didn't preach. She lived. Hubert Joly, the guy who was French guy who was CEO of Best Buy, again, CEO of the year. He stands up in front of everyone. My name is Hubert Joly. I've got feedback. I have a coach. I want to get better. Here's what I want to get better at. You heard him in the talk. What did he say in that book? What got you here when we was there? He said, I had 13 of the 20 problems.
Yeah.
He did. He wasn't lying. He just being honest, right? He got better. Why? He got better because he did it. Well, when you, as a leader, do these things, you have credibility to ask others to do these things. There's somebody mentioned Gandhi in one of the comments. A great story of Gandhi, which some of you may have heard, is the mother goes to Gandhi and says, tell my child to quit eating sugar. And Gandhi says, come back in 6 months. She comes back in 6 months, and Gandhi says to the child, quit eating sugar. The mother says, why did you have to wait 6 months? He said, I had to quit eating sugar myself. Ask your child.
Very powerful.
Now, you want them to quit eating sugar? Quit eating sugar. Yeah.
In our audience, we have leaders, future leaders, but we also have coaches. How can the SCL trainer program help elevate leadership coaches, elevate their practice?
Well, to me, this is a very transferable process. You see, most of what my clients learn, they do not learn from me. Most of what my clients learn, they learn from all the great people around them. So what you learn in stakeholder-centered coaching is to learn from everyone around you. That's why this is culturally transferable. That's why it works all around the world. You're not learning from some external person. As a coach, I am a facilitator, not an expert. I don't know about businesses. I mean, I can't be an expert on Walmart and the World Bank and Ford and Pfizer and all these companies. I'm not an expert on those businesses. On the other hand, I'm a facilitator to help people learn. Over COVID, we practiced this coaching process where we had 60 wonderful people and they learned from each other. Well, that's the essence of stakeholder coaching, is you learn from everyone around you.
Beautiful. So, for everyone who's listening, before we move on to getting some questions, more questions from the audience, there's great news. The program is now officially launched in the Gulf and the India region. And the first 10 people who sign up will be receiving a 25% reduction in the fees. The original regular price is $2,995. And again, the first 10 will be receiving a 25% reduction. So, make sure you click fast. And, before we get to the question, I want, we always talk about leadership in the company, but there's also leadership in the home. I mean, some of these things we need to be practicing and bringing into a house. And I remember when I was doing the STL training, there was a wonderful story about, how you asked your children about how can I be a better father? And I found that amazing that you took these same tools that have helped to elevate, the stakeholders in the company, you brought that home.
Let me give you a second example of that. The children example is a great one. I gave that example in one of my classes. And a woman said, I just did that with my daughter who was 17, and she sent me an email. And she said, my daughter was 17 and I asked her, how could I be a better mother? And we had such a nice conversation. And then she asked me, how can I be a better daughter? Then she said, I decided to call my own mother and ask her, how can I be a better daughter? She called her mother. And when she called her mother, how can I be a better daughter? Her mother said, Daddy's dead. I live alone in the country. Every day I take a long walk up the road to go to the mailbox. And almost every day there's nothing in the mailbox and it makes me lonely. It would mean so much to me if you'd send me a little picture or card every day. She started sending her mother pictures and cards every day. What did that cost her? Nothing. What did that mean to her mother? Everything. She sent me an email a few years later, and the email said, my mother just died. The last thing her mother told her before she died was, thank you for doing that. Now, if your parents are alive, it's a very nice thing to call them and ask them a question. What can I do to be a better son? What can I do to be a better daughter? And this is good for three reasons. Number one, is good for them. Even if they tell you you have nothing to improve, they'll be proud you care enough to ask. And number two, it's good for you. What's the number one regret children have when mom and dad die? Why didn't I thank them for everything they did to help me? Why was I judging them all the time? And then three, if you have little children, it's good for little children. Why is it good for little children? The old people you're calling on the phone, guess what? You're going to become the old people. You want your child calling you on the phone? Your little child is not going to listen to what you say. Your little child is going to watch what you do. Our values in life are not what we say. Our values in life are what we do. So it's good to do this stuff at work, even better to do it at home.
It's so powerful. If there's one valuable lesson that I've taken from this fireside chat is, it's not about giving orders. I mean, no one likes being told what to do, but just lead by example, do the things, practice what you preach. I mean, we hear this all the time in our daily lives, but yet we still go back to doing what we did. So thank you so much for your wisdom. We're now opening it up for, maybe 2 questions from the audience. So please type it in the chat box and we'll ask Dr. Marshall Goldsmith himself.
While we're waiting, let me give you one of the, I've got one. Okay, I've been HR professional. Where should I start my journey? Yeah, I like the stakeholder place. It's a great thing to learn in your journey as a coach. Because again, and let me give you another thing about starting your journey as a coach. Two ideas. One is start with yourself. Start with yourself, because my theory is if I do not know how these concepts apply to me, I do not know how these concepts apply. So the first learning is start with yourself. And then the second thing I'd say is first you start with yourself, then do nonprofit work. See, a lot of my blessings in life have come from me doing nonprofit work. Frances Hesselbein, I met her because I was a volunteer for the Girl Scouts. Peter Drucker, I met him. So do this nonprofit work. And then I would say that's another great thing to do. I got another message. Can you elaborate on the program that you plan with Alan Mullally? And again, that's one thing that we're going to incorporate it ultimately in your SEL training is called this LPR process. A wonderful process where every week people get together and they talk about their week. They talk about what they did well. They talk about what they want to change. And again, I've done this with some of the most powerful people in the world over the COVID. They loved it. Why? You know what one person said? He said, it's nice to spend 1 hour a week where I can just be a human being. It's nice to spend 1 hour a week where I can be human. I don't have to worry about people attacking me on social media. Just be a human.
Beautiful. It's such, again, another very powerful tool, great wisdom. It's so nice to get away and just be in a place where you can be yourself, no masks, completely authentic.
Yeah. And you know, I think working in nonprofits is a great thing to do for a variety of reasons. One, is good for them, and two, is good for you. It's good for you that, you know, you get to work in nonprofits. Somebody's on the board with Mr. Jim Rouse sent me a note, and you know, Mr. GMR does so much nonprofit work, and why? It's important to him. It's what he's here on earth for, to make a positive difference in the world. And you can't overstate that. A lot of his life is doing nonprofit work. And I've done programs in my home with retiring CEOs, and I ask them, you know, what are you proud of? And you know, well, they're never proud of how much money they made or how big their office was. They're proud of the people they've helped. Yeah. Now I got another question. I've referred to the Bhagavad Gita several times. How does this apply to leadership? To me, it applies a whole lot to leadership and coaching. And the really point of the Gita that I refer to over and over and over is don't get fixated on what you can't change. Don't get fixated on outcomes you don't control. Let me give you one final story from the Gita. I love this story. It's called The Golfer and the Beer Can. So the golfer is playing in the country club championship. He's in the final hole and he hits this drive. He has a chance to win. And in front of him, the group is noisy and drinking beer, and he's very annoyed. But he hits this beautiful drive, and the ball hits a beer can, and it goes away. And he's walking, it's a beer can. He's so angry, he screams. Argh! But then, what's a golfer have to do? Breathe. Breathe. Forget about the beer can. Forget about the people. Forget about winning the championship. Focus on one thing. Hit the shot in front of you. That's all you can ever do. That's the essence of the Gita. Hit the shot in front of you. Any second in time, hit the shot in front of you. The woman said, how can I be positive at all times? You don't have to be positive at all times. Hit the shot in front of you. Be positive now. You don't have to be present at all times. In fact, that just confuses you. You try to be present at all times, you're just confusing yourself. Be present now. You don't have to be happy at all times. That just is a burden. Be happy now. Be happy now.
Wow, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. There's so many pearls of wisdom in there, so much gratitude towards you. And on behalf of the audience, a big, big, big heartfelt thanks. You know, for anyone who wants to sign up for the course, as I mentioned, there's a reduction for the first 10 people, and you'll get to learn many more pearls of wisdom from the great Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. So make sure you sign up. Thank you again for your time and attendance. And we wish all of you a good morning, a good rest of the day, a good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.